You know, it's kind of funny. I can remember, matter of fact, I just found a journal that I wrote down when I was much younger, when I was a teenager, how one of my goals as an adult was to become a millionaire. It's a great thing to aspire to, right? Now my plan was terrible. Well, I guess it wasn't terrible. My plan at the time was to graduate high school, graduate college, and then from there just to get a six-figure job and to save six figures for 10 years and end up a millionaire and be done with it. That didn't work out. I've never gotten anywhere close to making six figures, but I have discovered something called compound interest. And thankfully, I don't have to make six figures to become a millionaire. And in today's video, I want to discuss how that works. I'm going to be covering what compound interest is, how it's going to help me reach my early retirement goal, and how it affects my daily view on the way I treat money. So simply put, compound interest really is your interest earning interest, which I know that can sound a little confusing. So let's look at an example. Okay, so for this example, I've pulled up a table and I've already put the numbers in. So I put in $1,000 deposit. We're going to leave it alone for 10 years, and it has an annual growth rate of 8%. So that's the compound interest portion of it. So we can see year zero, that's our initial contribution. Nothing happens. It's $1,000. But that first year, it gains 8%. So you end up with 1,080, which makes sense, right? Because that's 8% of $1,000 is 80. But the second year is where you start to see the compounding taking effect, because now it's 8% of 1,080, not 1,000. And the end result is you're left with 1,166. And as you go down the list, you can see that the number continues to grow because it's compounding on itself. So that's what the definition of compound interest is. It's interest on interest, and the number gets bigger and bigger. And a neat little trick that you can do here is something called the rule of 72. And what this rule says is it basically tells you how long it will take for your money to double. So you take the number 72, you divide it by what you expect the interest rate to be. So in our case, it's 8. And the answer for that should be how long it takes for your money to double. So we would have 72 divided by 8 equals 9. So in 9 years, our $1,000 should double to $2,000. And again, if we look here at the chart, year 9, we're at 1,999. So I'd say that's close enough. So if you remember the story that I talked about at the beginning of the video and my goal to reach $1 million when I was a teenager, the way I wanted to go about it, just to kind of recap, was to get a job that made $100,000 a year and to save $100,000 a year. And in 10 years, voila, I'm a millionaire. Like I mentioned, life does not go that way. And I'll just reiterate, I've never gotten close to making $100,000. But the compound interest that we're talking about today is such a huge help that if I put in the same numbers that we did in our last example, okay, so we're going to assume an 8% return, which is realistic, by the way, for something like the S&P 500, which actually averages closer to 10%. But I always like to be modest. I like to consider inflation, all that stuff that's going to take place. So we're going to stick with the same 8%, and let's have a look at how that looks compared to my initial plan. Okay, so here we go. So please don't let these numbers scare you. This is just a hypothetical based on the goal I had as a teenager for the $1 million in nice round numbers. So with my initial plan, I wanted $1 million in 10 years, and I was going to put away $100,000 a year to get there. That means I would have had to put away $8,333 every single month to reach the $1 million with no compound interest. Now, with the 8% compound interest that we've discussed, I would only have to put away $5,752 a month. And I know when I say only, that sounds stupid because that's still a lot of money. But compared to 8,333, it's a lot less. And I'm only using this to illustrate how compound interest is such a huge help. I'm going to say it one more time, okay? I know these numbers are huge. It's just, for the $1 million mark, and especially the time frame that I have it set at is 10 years. So you could have different monetary goals. You could have different timelines, and you can adjust those things in something like a compound interest calculator. That's not the point. The point was to show that the compound interest is a significant help and can really expedite the process and take you to places you might not have realistically imagined. I imagined it when I was in middle school, but it wasn't realistic. Understanding compound interest has really affected my relationship with money. And I'm not going to lie and say that before I was a big spender, I was always relatively frugal. But now that I understand what $100 a month can do for me, I am much more reluctant to spend it on things here and now, especially if I don't really find value in them. And I'll admit, I can be a bit tight sometimes when it comes to money because of this. And I just want to give just another quick example and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm on a 10-year plan to retire early. And if I plug in the numbers here, if I can save $100 a month for the next 10 years with the annual interest rate that we discussed before of 8%, look what that turns into in 10 years. That's $18,128. That's only for $100 a month. So when I see something that I want to buy or that I want to do, and it costs me around $100 a month, and I'll be honest again, even sometimes a little less than that, I'm reluctant to spend that money. And I'm not saying that's a good thing because it can absolutely go too far because you need to enjoy the present. But it is a good thing in that you truly understand what you're really spending. You're really spending the opportunity and the chance for that money to grow and really become something, a big nest egg for you down the road. Compound interest takes time, and the more time that you have to compound upon itself, the greater the results will be. And I want you to use that as encouragement to start investing today, not tomorrow, not next week, but if you can start today, go ahead and get started. So I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next week.